everybody, Kristen here, and welcome to Fansplaining. This is my brand new show where we're going to be talking in depth, analyzing, making our conspiracy theories, and just generally fanning out about movies and TV shows, sometimes week to week. And I'm so excited to be starting this series off with one of my all-time favorite TV shows. The first season just blew me away, and that is WESTWORLD. It is finally back. Season 2, Episode 1 premiered last night, and so we're going to be talking about this show every single week. If you want to tune into that, please hit that subscribe button, and you can be notified every time that I'm uploading. I'm so excited about it, I can't even speak. This Season 2 opener had so much to talk about, but before we get into it, this is your disclaimer, guys. Again, we're talking about this show in depth, so if you haven't watched Season 2, Episode 1, Journey into Night of WESTWORLD, turn this off. This is your spoiler alert. I'm not going to warn you again. Again, hit that subscribe button and you can come back after you've watched it. You guys, Bernard is leaking. Delos is also leaking, but they're leaking DNA to God knows where and doing God knows what with it. You have Maeve, who is honestly still the boss babe that we just don't deserve. And then you have Dolores, who like essentially wants a genocide, or at the very least very clearly wants a worldwide role reversal, and what she'll do to humans in that world, I really don't know. So let's hop into it. I have to give it to the writers and the cinematography team. I really feel like they have started off this season with such a good sense of like what we're going into. Between the title, Journey into Night, and then you also have that amazing new opening sequence, which is significantly darker than last season's. Lots of color changes, lots of just general theme changes. I feel like they're really setting us up for like, we're not playing around this season, things are about to get ugly. And I have to say, I never thought that my 2 years of pursuing a theater degree in college would ever serve me a purpose in the fandom community. But for those of you that don't know, Journey into Night is actually based off of Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night, which is a play. And when I say that the like metaphors and symbolism are just eerie, it's eerie. Good job, writers. You did your thing. I feel like the best way to go through this episode is talking character by character. So let's start off with Bernard, because he's obviously a big focus point of this premiere. He is the character that we really see the most of, and we kind of follow him along his journey of past and present. Now, I actually had a lot of time today to see people's reactions and what they thought about the episode, because I didn't get to film this video until later on Monday night. It's about 8:30 right now, and so I was really surprised to see how many people online had trouble keeping track of Bernard's timelines, because to me they seemed fairly obvious. You have his present storyline where he starts off the episode and he is with Delos higher-ups, and they pretty much are all asking him what the hell happened, and he is having trouble remembering what exactly has happened and where he is. And then you have his past, which is spent with a bunch of higher-ups at Delos until they don't end up so great, and then he spends it with Charlotte, who takes him to an outpost that he didn't know existed, where he finds out that DNA is being smuggled. I would say if you're someone who's having trouble grappling what time period he's in, just ask yourself this question: is there sand in his beard? If there is sand in his beard, that is the present time. If there is not sand in his beard, it's the past. And to touch quickly on his present, we obviously see him being kind of escorted around by Delos higher-ups trying to figure out what happened. But the really interesting thing that I've seen online is a lot of people, and please let me know if you feel this way in the comment section down below, think that the Delos higher-ups know that he's a host and are pretending so that they can take advantage of that at the right moment. And that's not what I personally got from the episode, though I think that could be really interesting. I don't exactly know how they would know he's a host unless they did some sort of scan that we didn't see of him, but it doesn't seem like that happened, so I'm not really on board with that theory yet. But if you are on board with that theory, let me know why you think that that's a reality in the comment section. And really the most major thing that we get from the present from him is the cap to the episode, where you see a lot of bodies of hosts in a water in a lake that they didn't know existed, and Bernard claims that he killed all of these hosts. So obviously the big question coming out of this episode is like, does he mean that literally? Does he mean that figuratively? Is Dolores involved? I really don't know yet. All I know is that Teddy is floating in that water, which I did not notice my first time watching this around. But then there is the past, which is this DNA drone scheme. It turns out that the information that Charlotte put in Abernathy last season is get DNA? I honestly don't know what's creepier, the fact that they're collecting the DNA or the fact that those creepy ass drones are the ones collecting that DNA from people's genital areas. And the question obviously here is why, because there are a couple of palpable reasons why they could be doing this. Number one could be to collect information to use against celebrities, political figures, anybody important that comes to the parks. Because from what we saw, as long as they have that brain and they have that chip, they can literally visually see what the host saw. And so let's say a married politician was getting it on with a WESTWORLD host, they could release that sort of thing and it could make them look really bad. Number two is they could use that DNA to clone those people, which is not great. So that could actually go one of two ways kind of morally. It could be them taking the DNA and then going to a political figure and being like, hey, I can make a copy of yourself that can never die, and that could be a good thing to sell. But the more likely thing is that they could clone the celebrity or politician and then possibly replace them and take power. This is some very creepy shit. And another kind of subsector of that is that they could clone those celebrities, politicians, whoever, and then get them to do stuff that makes them look bad on video, and nobody would ever know that it's a host. They would think it's the real version. This is just, oh, it's so much. But getting away from the DNA stuff and kind of wrapping up on the Bernard stuff, like I said earlier, Bernard is leaking, which is not great, and that is the catalyst for kind of all of the stuff that we are seeing in this episode. It is causing dissonance in time in his brain, which means that he can't really grasp on exactly what time or day it is. I think they refer to it as time slipping. But the more interesting thing here is that it seems to be fatal. Like, it seems to be a fatal thing for him. So how long can he put this off? He obviously takes an injection from the other host's neck and puts it into his. Is that maybe why there are all those dead host bodies in the water? Is that maybe a reason why he would kill all of them by injecting and taking out all of the stuff from their necks? I don't really know, but I don't want Bernard to go anywhere, so this makes me super nervous for him for the rest of the season. But I really enjoy that the show has not ignored the fact that Bernard literally just found out that he is a host like an episode before this, which is not very long at all time-wise. I like that they're dealing with that, and it seems to be something that is scaring him and hitting him in a certain way, whether that's what actually triggered like the malfunction in his brain or caused the shaking in his hand. What exactly is happening? I like that they are not just skimming over that and making that something easy for him to handle, because now he literally has to hide it from the Delos higher-ups, assuming that they don't already know. Next up, let's talk about the man in black, William, who is honestly living his best life. He's never been happier. He has awoken after 30 years of being dead inside, though I would still argue he's pretty dead inside. He wakes up, he goes to his horse, he pats him on the head, he puts his hat back on, and then he runs into young Ford. And the dynamic between Robert and Will is like a really interesting thing that I really hope we're gonna delve deeper into this season. It certainly seems like there's something really crucial there. And one of the biggest things talked about in this episode last night was what was going on with young Ford's voice. It kind of had this like disembodied, robotic, like really creepy thing going on, but a lot of people argued that if you listen to it closely, it sounded like Anthony Hopkins' voice, which I I'm still on team I hope that Ford is still alive, so that would make me really happy. Young Ford tells Will that he has finally completed the maze. The maze is over and there is finally a game that is meant for him, which leaves us wondering if Ford's final wish was that he created an entire game for Will, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. He now has to get through the door. He has to pretty much get his way, make his way through Westworld, and what's at the end of that for him, I really don't know. And I get the feeling that even though William shoots young Ford in the head and is kind of cavalier about it, that he knows that shit just got real and that it might not be as fun as he wants it to be. Interestingly enough, when I asked my friends about their opinions of last night's episode, almost all the comments that I got were about William. One of my good friends, Eric, mentioned how he's not too thrilled that it looks like in future episodes we're going to be seeing a lot of flashbacks of Will, and it almost seems like they're going in the direction of like they want us to understand and sympathize with Will better. And when it comes down to it, obviously William is still someone that like has discovered this really, really dark side of himself and wants to kill people. But one of the most interesting things about The Man in Black, about William to me, season 1, was that when you look at the guests that go to Westworld on a whole, William is actually kind of like on a better moral scale, because at least he wants the hosts to be able to fight back. Now, whether he wants that because he wants a fair fight for like him to walk out and like, you know, be thrilled and, you know, feel good about himself that he could defeat someone, whether that's his motivations or not, like he still cares about them being able to fight back, and there's something I think to be said for that. But then you also look at it and he's still a guy that, you know, like wants to kill people, and there's no real getting around that. So I think that's one of the most interesting like moral stories going on within the series, because like, does he really care about the host having consciousness, or does he really care about still being able to kill someone with no consequences? I think it's probably the second. And since it's sort of connected, let's talk about whether there's a chance that Robert Ford is still alive or not. One of the biggest moments in the episode is when Bernard immediately goes up to his body, flips him over, and there are maggots coming out of his eyes. That indicates to us that he probably was a human body, that almost certainly was him, because that's just not the way that the other hosts have like decomposed. But something that I can't stop thinking about is, why wouldn't he be able to just transfer all of his memories, his consciousness essentially, over into a host's body? I mean, it's kind of what we've been grappling with this entire season. If this thing has all of his memories, has all of his personality traits, is even aware already that he is a host and like the kind of purpose that he serves within this world, why isn't that kind of as good as him being the real Ford? It kind of does make him the real Ford on some level. So I still stand by that Ford is still somehow with us. He's still embedded in the story in some way. Everyone is code there, so why couldn't he be code? And next up, let's talk about my favorite character, my girl, truly just such a boss, Maeve. In this episode, we see Maeve exactly where we left her. She has literally like just gotten off the train and she's wandering in to find people, and she comes across the most annoying character to ever live, Lee. One character that we're all screaming into the screen, kill him, and they don't kill him. You know, that's just how it goes sometimes. She finds Lee, decides not to kill him for now, and begins touting him around in the hopes that he will bring her to her daughter, who she is still on a mission to go and find. And I wanted to touch upon this storyline because obviously it's important to the episode, but also because I read something today that I thought was like not really fair to Westworld. Rolling Stone basically said this quote in their recap and kind of review of the first episode. They said that working off of the first season's template, the co-showrunner Lisa Joy and her co-writer Robert Patino have once again created a world in which everyone's an asshole and no one likes anyone. And I disagree with that. I think mainly because of Maeve and also because of Bernard. I don't think that that's true, because I think both of those characters show compassion and empathy for both like the humans and the hosts. I can see to a degree where they're coming from, but I don't think that universally that's a problem within the show. I've never saw the entire show as like this big fest of everybody hating one another. I've seen it as a struggle for power and a struggle for understanding, and I just thought that was like kind of a weird mischaracterization from Rolling Stone. Let me know if you agree with them in the comments down below. Like, I'm really interested, because I was really taken aback by that analysis, because I just don't feel the same. But again, I loved Maeve in this episode. I love her relationship with Hector. I think it's just the best. They are my top ship of this entire series. They're just great. But my biggest question about Maeve leaving this episode is kind of where I left off in season 1. In season 1, they left us off kind of not sure if Maeve is actually really in control of what she's doing. They found out Bernard pretty much looked into her code and figured out that like every step of the process that she had done was laid out perfectly for her and planned, like that was part of her storyline. And so I'm still super curious if that's why she can control the hosts, if maybe Ford programmed her to actually like be able to control them, or if this is all still part of a grander storyline storyline. Does she actually have control of her actions right now? I don't know. The other big thing that I think is going to come into play is, can Maeve control Dolores? Like, is Maeve's ability to control people, if it's not part of her storyline, is it because she's programmed herself to be smarter than the rest of the hosts, or is it based in her consciousness? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Could she possibly control Dolores, or are her and Dolores on like that same level? Could Dolores control hosts? It's all very up in the air, but that does bring us around to the main kahuna, the one, the only, Dolores. Dolores is fully awake, and I like that we didn't like meander into that. I like that she's fully awake, she's evolved, she's realized. She even says in the episode, she acknowledges that like part of her is Dolores and part of her is Wyatt, and I thought that that was like a really good job on the show of being like, nope, you were right, she is Wyatt, let's just get that out of the way. Dolores has the best lines in this episode too. The moment when she says to the guy that's going to hang himself, doesn't look like anything to me, I was like, oh, savage, you are savage. You're not a role model, but you're savage. And Dolores is pretty upfront with her intentions in this episode, which I also appreciated. She's like, I want to get to the outside world. I want to take over that outside world, because if we don't take over that outside world, we're dead. We're smarter than them. We're better at hunting than them. They know it, and so they're gonna get rid of us. Like, look at them. They'd get rid of us right now if they had the chance. So come on, Teddy, we got to go. And one of the most interesting things about Dolores right now is like, we don't know what she knows, what she is remembering, because the big thing at the beginning of the episode when she is talking what we assume to Arnold in her earlier days, we don't know where Arnold took her. We don't know where Arnold like what he showed her on this journey to consciousness when he was still alive, and that certainly seems like it's going to be a theme for the rest of this season. And so Dolores probably has so much more information than we even realize at this point. I'm just so excited. She is a mean, lean, beautiful fighting machine, but the one question I have is still, why is she wearing that underbust corset still? Like, if I became conscious and I realized I was wearing an underbust corset and I was like gonna go around shooting people in the wild, wild west, I would get rid of the corset. I wouldn't wear it anymore. Those things are constricting. And wrapping all of this up, we have to talk about Teddy, who is kind of on this journey with Dolores, and I think Teddy is gonna be a big player this season. Teddy doesn't have the level of kind of like revenge that it seems like Dolores has at this point, and so you can already see him in this episode not fully understanding why Dolores wants this kind of genocide it seems like she's alluding to, and why she needs so much control. And when we see Teddy at the end of the episode floating in the water, Bernard must have killed him, that raises a lot of questions. Did he maybe challenge Dolores? If there's a possibility that like Dolores is behind Bernard killing these people, which I think there is a real possibility of, then like, did he turn on her? Does he have a moral compass? Right now, like, while yes, the hosts have gone like awry, the only reason that they really have gone awry is because they think everyone else is hosts. None of those other hosts have suddenly gained the realization that like all these people that they now recognize as hosts were actually like pulling these puppet strings. They don't all fully realize that yet. So seeing all these characters like reach that level like at different stages throughout this is gonna be like very, very intriguing. And that's also the scariest part about Dolores's army, because when we even say at the end of the episode that all of these hosts are dead in the water, what does that mean for a host? Is the only way to actually kill a host to remove that brain chip? I imagine that that's the only way, because otherwise they can just continually be repaired, and if one of the hosts learns how to repair the other hosts, then that's all you need. Then you don't need a human at all, and you have a race that's gonna live forever. And the complexities and where this show could go this season are just fascinating, and I cannot wait to continue discussing it with you guys. And wrapping up our fansplaining of this episode, I want to do a segment called Surviving or Thriving, and I want to give a special shout out to my friend Terry, who suggested this segment, and I was like, yes, that's brilliant. Basically, we're gonna go down the line of characters and we're gonna decide, are they surviving or are they thriving at this point in time in Westworld. Bernard, he's surviving for now until he has another oil leak and he needs to find the Tin Man. Poor Bernard. Dolores, she's thriving. These violent delights have violent ends, and she can't wait to put those delights to their violent ends. William, thriving, best time of his life. He's never felt so alive. Maeve, she's surviving and sort of thriving. What I like about her the most is that she's the most human out of any of the characters, which makes the answer to this question the most complex, because even though she is surviving and thriving to a degree because she's never had this much power and she's in control, she's still trying to find her daughter, and like, who knows if that'll happen. So she's in that middle ground. I would still say that she is both surviving and thriving. Lee, he's surviving. I wish he weren't. Hector, he is thriving. He is great. He has Maeve. He is very attractive, and I'm very about it. Ned the horse, having a great time riding along with William. I'm very invested in Ned the horse now, even though he's almost certainly a host horse. But that's better because that means he'll live forever. Teddy, it depends on the time period we're talking about. He seems to be surviving in the beginning, but not so much in the end. Charlotte, she is surviving and she is thriving, and I'm gonna tell you why she's thriving. Even though she hasn't gotten that walking hard drive to Delos, she is still rocking that yellow dress this entire episode until she finally changes. And listen, she was thriving in that yellow dress. That yellow dress got her through a lot of shit. Ford, TBD. Maggots aren't looking great though. And finally, Dolores's party prisoners. They are surviving, but they're hanging on by a thread. Too soon? Too soon. And that wraps up this episode of Fansplaining on Westworld Season 2, Episode 1, Journey into Night. I would love to hear all of your thoughts about last night's episode in the comments section down below. Let me know your conspiracy theories. Let me know your favorite moments. Let me know your favorite quotes. I'll tell you that this was my favorite meme that I saw in reaction to last night's episode. I thought that this was hilarious. Send me all of those things in the comment section down below. I want to give a special quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. These people support me over on patreon.com/shutupkristen. They donate a certain amount of money every month and they get certain rewards for doing so. Thank you so much to them, and a big shout out to the official sponsor of these videos, Matthew. Thank you so much, Matthew, my Ravenclaw brother. You rock. If you want to follow me on other social media, I'm at shutupkristen pretty much everywhere. Otherwise, I will catch you in my next video. Bye!